Doing well, thank you.
Hello everyone, it's 2 p.m. and since we're live streaming, we'll go ahead and get started on time. My name is Kendra Holliday and I'm co-founder of SEX+STL St. Louis, and one of my other co-founders is right here, David Ray. And today we are here at Shameless Grounds. Thanks again for hosting us. We have so many great events at Shameless Grounds. And with me today is Stacy. She's one of our volunteers who's been a core member since 2011. We started in 2010. And in 2010, we started off with 4 members. It was David, me, and 2 other people. And that very first month, we had our first happy hour at Foam Coffee Shop on Cherokee. And that's where we had 100 people show up. And ever since then, we've had more and more people join our group, mainly through our meetup page. And I bet most of you have known about us through our meetup page. Although we do have an online presence with our website, SEX+STL.com, and our Facebook group as well, for as long as that's allowed to remain. But Meetup has been a very stronghold for us, and we've enjoyed a lot of growth on that page. We have over 4,000 members at this point, which is more than a lot of other sex-positive groups around the country in bigger cities. So we're really proud to recognize that this is a very much needed resource in St. Louis. And our whole point of SEX+STL St. Louis is to help connect people to what they are looking for. So we don't act like we know everything, but we try our best to get everyone the resources they need. So we do a lot of events with discussions like this and also happy hours. We have a happy hour coming up Tuesday night, and those are a great introduction to people who are new to the group. They're public and free, and you just attend and meet a lot of like-minded people. We usually have between 60 and 100 people show up at those happy hours. And then we also offer discussions like this. So the point of this talk today is not to hear me talk for 2 hours, thank God. What we're going to do is kind of start a discussion and have other people join us. And just so you know, we have this live streaming right now, so we're going to keep the camera on the stage so that me and Stacy are the only one visible, and anyone else who comes up to the stage. And if you have any questions throughout, we'll repeat them so that you can stay off camera and we can talk about whatever topics you have in mind as far as this subject goes. And with that said, we wanted to cover this topic that we've done in the past, and we do it in different formats. And this topic is sex-positive etiquette for men. And what we have found with our over 4,000 members is that at least 2,000 members are men and 2,000 members are women. And of course, we aren't just the gender binary. We offer a wide range of people represented. But what we have found in the past 9 years now is that throughout the years, we've received a few complaints from mostly women in the group about men contacting them on the meetup forum or posting discussions or sending private messages. So while everyone is on there to meet like-minded people, we have to keep in mind that we want everyone to feel safe and comfortable. And we have received a handful of complaints out of 4,000 members. That's not a bad, shabby kind of number there. But what we want to do is help educate the men who are contacting other members to learn about better ways to approach the women in our group so that women feel comfortable and safe. Because what we found is that we want women to come to our groups, our events. We want everyone to feel comfortable, but we've had women tell us that they were excited to join the group, but they got 4 kind of off-putting messages in 1 week, and that they are no longer comfortable being a part of the group, and then they leave the group. We don't want that. So I'd like to give some examples of Stacy has been a member since 2011, and she gets messages quite often as a member. I don't get them as much as kind of the co-founder. They don't bother me so much, but Stacy, I asked her to save just the past few that she's received so she can share with you some examples of the messages she's been receiving just in the past month or so. Just a couple, 3 here. So
Okay.
Get right up there.
All right, right up here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I get these on a regular basis, and these all come from the Meetup website, which is not even supposed to be like, it hardly has any kind of profile or anything else to it. Now, with the Meetup people and their ultimate wisdom, they do not allow you to share pictures, thank God. Because the first one I'm going to share to you is, "What's up, beautiful? Would love to try some of these positions with you." And I know he attempted to attach pictures to this.
And that was his first message.
Yeah, these are all first messages. These are all cold contact messages. The first thing I've received in my inbox from this person. Don't know them, never met them. They didn't talk to me at any of the happy hours or anything else. Just, here, this is me. Now this one, the first one got deleted because he got his entire account closed and then wrote me back. It was, "Hi Stacy, how are you? Do you remember me? My previous account was deleted. Please let me in orgy or adult party." So, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, but there's no way I would, even if I could. That's not how you contact someone straight off. Now this one is extremely long. It is 3 pages. I'm only going to read the first half a page. "Hi Stacy. I had seen your post in a group and I recently joined and thought you were a very attractive person. So I checked your profile out. I'm very intrigued to learn more about you. I've always had very strong attractions and am very aroused by the thought of dating or engaging in sexual activities with a transgendered female, especially one as attractive as you. I had always been completely sexually attracted to transgender women and have only had the pleasure of thinking or fantasizing about engaging in sexual intercourse and or possibly a sexual relationship." This goes on for another 2.5 pages. And at the end of it, he actually asked me to explain to him in detail any sexual activities I've done. So these are some examples on how not to contact somebody.
So we've tried to come up with all different kinds of approaches for helping our group remain intact and comfortable and balanced. So one of the formulas we've come up with keeping women in the group is to offer the public happy hours where everyone is welcome and it's a free public setting. And then we also will sometimes host women-only events so that women have a safe space. And when we offer those events, the women can come in a small group and get really comfortable and confident, and it's a nice place for them. And then we also will host some clothing optional events, which are hosted in private venues, and they are screened. So we're trying to keep a nice balance. As you can obviously tell, this is a public event. Everyone's here, and this is one of our free events that's a community outreach kind of thing. And then we just offer different things. So educational, entertainment, parties, celebrations, and all of those things. So we have noticed that when we do offer those women-only events, we do get complaints from men who don't feel included in those events, but we wish to convey to you that this is very important to help women find the safe spaces so that they will get to catch up with all of this fun excitement of reaching out to people and being comfortable in their own skin. We have had some men-only events as well in the past, and we're happy to do some more. So as we are speaking and having this discussion, which will be turned over to you shortly, please let us know any feedback or suggestions or something that you feel that we're not getting quite right so that we can continue to grow as a community and get to our year 2020, which will be our 10-year anniversary. We feel like our group is successful because we've noticed other little sex-positive groups pop up in the St. Louis area and other places, and we see them grow, and then they quickly get a little bit of attention, and then they fizzle out, and I don't pay attention to all what they're doing. But what I feel like we've done right, and that reason why we keep growing, is because we have a moderated group. We have 5 co-leaders right now, and we're all volunteers. So David and myself and Emily and Nick and Nakia all spend time trying to curate and cultivate and create good events for everyone. And our goal this year is to have 12 to 24 events, which is at least twice a month. So we're working on those kind of things. And we keep it very mixed up with all the different ideas, and we try to get community feedback on that. We also have an harassment policy in place, and we have that posted on the meetup page, and we have it on our Facebook page as well. If anyone ever has any issues, we ask that you contact us and let us know, and we will handle it. We don't outright ban people immediately. We try to educate people on better approaches and give people a chance to continue to be a part of the group. Trying to think of where to go with this next. Do you feel like you want to say something next, or should we open it up to some questions, discussion? Who wants to chime in with some sort of feedback? As a woman, we'd like to hear from you about your dating experiences or being a part of a group and how that feels. As a man who is looking for female energy and companionship, what are some of the frustrations you've come across? And if you are so inclined to be a successful man who has relationships with women and you're feeling all emotionally and physically fulfilled, we'd love to hear from you about how that works for you so that we can all learn and find out how to best approach different people in a way that's very compassionate and patient and mature and sex positive. Hello.
Hi, Linda. I have approached women and I said to them, I have no intention. I have no preconceived notions. And it's like they don't believe me. It's not my intent to take them home and throw them in my bed. And they just don't believe me.
So what you're saying is that when you're approaching women online,
No.
or when you're approaching women in person, and you say to them, hello, I would like to get to know you and build some sort of friendship or relationship with you, and I don't have expectations. And that's a really big thing. So you're saying that that approach doesn't work for you.
It hasn't so far.
And
It's like they don't believe me.
okay, so let's talk about that. If a man came up to you and said, hey, how are you? Let me get to know you. What would help you feel comfortable with that person and want to spend more time with them? Anyone? Hello.
Hello, I'm Sue. I've been single for 20 years. And I probably need to know a little more information about the setting. But if I'm out, whether it's in a parking lot, a restaurant, the grocery store, the mall, because I've had situations similar to this. So if a man comes up to me and says what you just said, I might be a little apprehensive. And maybe, I don't know what words you're using exactly, but maybe changing words.
So this woman who, I don't know if they can hear you on the camera here, but you're saying that if a person came up to you and said those words, and of course it's paraphrased, but it still feels kind of like a cold call, it feels a little sudden, a little...
Yes, I mean, what I would recommend, if there's someone that you're interested in, and you don't know them, they don't know you, just walk up to them, introduce yourself. You look like someone I would like to get to know better. Would you be open for a cup of coffee?
That's perfect. I think when you, she said to just walk up, approach them, say hi, I'd like to introduce yourself, I'd like to get to know you, and can I buy you a cup of coffee? That type of approach I think works really well, and it's probably going to work better than saying all the extra stuff, because that's, even if the person wasn't thinking that at the beginning, you just planted that seed in their mind. And so when you're first coming up to introduce yourself or you want to get to know someone, less is usually better.
Change for you. Thank you very much.
Here's something from my, is it on? Oh, here's something from my perspective. There's different ways of approaching people in person. So I'm fortunate that at the happy hours, I get to cultivate my community. So people come up to me and people have already met me and I've met them before. Some people are for the first time, and then I get to kind of network around and introduce different people who have like-minded interests. One thing I would definitely recommend, if you come to one event and you don't feel like it was amazing, please don't give up and feel frustrated and leave and don't come back. It's really important that if this is something that you believe in, this whole building a sex-positive community, that you don't give up and you keep coming to the events without the expectations, and don't think of this as like a hookup site or a dating place, but realize that you're finding like-minded people to get to know on a slow basis and get to build some sort of comfort zone. So women have a lot of things that women have a lot more to lose in our society when it comes to interacting with people and walking down the street and going to public places. As you well know from all the media about people slipping drugs and drinks and being harassed on the street, all those things. So what I would recommend is that, and this is where I want some discussion here, is that when you see a woman you're attracted to or interested in, if you can somehow think of something that will put her at ease or help her feel comfortable and not immediately want something from her, because by the time you have contacted her, she's already felt like 5 things already. So like for instance, if someone contacted me on Meetup and a message saying, hey, I would love to have a threesome, and that's the first thing they contact me about. To me, I've already had 4 inquiries like that already today or something like that, and I'm a little bit drained and frustrated, so that comes off as very like, that's not the right approach. But if you say, hey, I'm new to the group, do you have any advice? Which events would you recommend? Then I can help you get into it, and if you want to get to know me, and I can introduce you to other people as well, and just take it in that kind of slow approach. And think about what you can offer the person and not what you can get from the person.
No problem.
So I want to address what the gentleman said earlier about telling women that he's not interested in like taking them home for sex and then not believing them. I feel like as men, I feel like for the audience at home, I feel like as men, we sometimes blame women for a natural reaction to male behavior, not necessarily ours, but the behavior of other men. So to put it in another context, if I came up to you on the street at 3 o'clock in the morning wearing a ski mask and a black parka with a gun pointed at you and said, hey man, I'm not trying to rob you, I just want to get to know you as a person, you probably wouldn't believe me, because past experience has told you that this is a robbery. And I feel like with women, lots of guys who've said that exact same thing had the opposite intent. And that's not your fault, but it's also not the fault of the woman for taking the necessary precautions to protect herself. I feel like as men, we focus on the inequity of opportunity and choice, because we feel like since we're always down to roll, allegedly, stereotypically, that women basically have their pick of who they want to have sex with, which is kind of our fault because we've flooded the market with dick and we've brought down the value. But we don't look at the inequity in risk. You know, there's an old joke, men are afraid that women will reject them, women are afraid that men will rape and kill them. And so the risk involved is very different. And I think when we're crafting our approach, we have to look at it from the woman's perspective. And we have to sort of put the time in to gain their trust. Just saying, I promise I'm not just trying to hook up with you, is like a used car salesman saying, I'm really honest and you can trust me.
One thing recently, I've had a couple of men contact me asking for advice on how to get to know women and get with women and date women. And when I gave them the advice, they told me, no, you're wrong. I've read from dating coaches and pickup artists that you need to be really funny, or you need to kind of put the woman off guard a little bit, and then she'll be more vulnerable. And then, so basically they ask me for advice, and then they tell me I'm wrong because they've read it from all these other pickup artists kind of
She's right there at the top.
platforms. So I would recommend that.
No problem.
I haven't read all the pickup artist stuff, but I would say that you should take the advice of a woman over those people. And also, a lot of the pickup artist stuff, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, they try to get you a persona that you can use for gaining things, and it's all about kind of gaining things and playing the game and making points. But if you, instead of trying to be super funny all the time, if you could think about who you really are and what you have that is different, that something that you bring to the table. What do you have to offer that is different from all the other men out there? What is your quirk? What is your, what's something that is going to really be more authentic? So having a sense of humor is great, but constantly joking, it comes off as insecure and can be a little exhausting. So that's one example.
I'd also say that if you're using a persona or of that nature, you're going to run into someone who may actually like a part of what you're projecting, and that's not you. So if you really like this person, they're going to find out that's not who you are, and that relationship is dumped. So that's something else to think about.
I got an idea too. I think we look at rejection as a rejection of ourselves, and for some women that you approach you might be interested in, it might not even be about you. They might be just not interested that day. They might be in a relationship. So if they're into you for the possibility of like a date, then less is more, because they will be into you to go out with you for those reasons. You don't necessarily need to be strong and forward with it.
So you're saying that as you're approaching people, you won't get accepted all the time. You may be rejected, but do your best not to take it personally.
For no reason whatsoever.
That has nothing to do with you.
Yep.
It has to do with whatever she's got going on at the time.
Well, it just could be for a variety of reasons, and you shouldn't take it as rejection being a referendum on yourself too. Mm-hmm. That's part of the process.
Yeah. So this is a good question. How many people here have applied for a job and not gotten it? How many people have asked someone out and got rejected? I have. Honestly, I was so surprised. How many times do we experience rejection? One thing you can do is to practice rejection. One little thing that I do, and this is really odd, random, but when I take my walks on the street, I say hello to every single person. And some cities are different, but in St. Louis, maybe 2 out of 10 people will say hello back. And it used to really offend me, like, why aren't they saying hello back? Of course, they have their own things going on. They have their earbuds on. They don't want to mess with people. And if you say hello, then you might want something from them. So I do that to myself every day just to get used to that, and knowing that I'm putting it out there in a nice way, but if they don't say hi back, I'm not going to get all butthurt about it like I used to. That's one example.
I was just going to add to what you said a little bit. I'm one of those girls that can't stand in a line and not talk to the people around me. And if I go out and it's anywhere, and if I'm talking to a guy, automatically they think that they get to take me home. And that's not going to happen.
Yes, so there is a risk of women who are friendly or smile or laugh at someone's joke or socializes, that all of a sudden a man will perceive that they are interested in them in something more than just a kind of casual, social, floating by interaction, and then it all of a sudden engages a whole nother level, and then that can create more awkwardness and discomfort.
But if they would have just asked me if I wanted that cup of coffee tomorrow or some other day.
So without the pressure, you mean? So they...
Well, we're talking anyway, right?
Uh-huh.
This seems like someone who's kind of fun. She's talking to me. She doesn't even know me. And instead of taking it down to the sexual avenue, let's develop a relationship, a friendship, and see if the sex comes after that, right?
Yes.
Just because I say no to bed doesn't mean I wouldn't say yes to coffee.
Yes. David just did a really cool guest post on our blog that is relevant.
Guest post?
No, I'm sorry. Sorry. Who's doing a guest post? Not you. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I'm thinking of my next project and so on. Anyway, so a man wrote into us, like a lot of people do. We have mostly men contacting us, but women and couples and all kinds of people. So this man wrote to us and asked us, I am craving a spanking by a woman. I want a woman to spank me. Can you help? And David wrote him back and then turned it into the actual post, the answer, so that not just this one man got the answer, but everyone reading our blog could get the same feedback. Do you happen to have it handy? Because the one part I really liked was towards the end of that suggestion. So everyone wants something. They want a kiss, they want cuddles, they want intimacy. This man wanted a spanking, and he's sitting at home by himself. There's no woman next to him. How is he going to get that spanking? And I would love if you were to read that answer. It's kind of short. Let me watch this right here. Thank you.
All right, so the question was, I've been looking long and hard for someone who will spank me. Seriously, would you know any trustworthy ladies you can tell me about, or could you point me in the right direction? Thanks so much. And my response was, there are two solutions to your situation. One involves an investment of time, the other an investment of money. If you are willing to spend the money, you could be getting your bare ass spanked by a professional dominatrix in a day or two. If you're short on cash, I would suggest getting involved in your local BDSM and or sex positive community. Go to munches, play parties, and educational events within the community, meet people, make friends, etc. In time, you're bound to meet women who'd like nothing more than to pummel your ass for free, but do not rush. Allow time for people to get to know you and for you to get to know them. Coming off as desperate, eager, or otherwise uninterested in the person attached to the spanking hand is a surefire path to cold, lonely nights with a cold, lonely, unspanked ass.
Thank you. Round of applause. Oh my gosh. So, does that make sense? Is that reasonable, or is that...
Where's that posted? I want a copy of it.
And you can fill in a blank. It doesn't have to be spanking. It can be, how do I get laid? How do I do this? And that's the thing. When Stacy and 4 other women get a message about wanting to hook up, that's of course like when you're fishing, you're trying to get some sort of response, but that doesn't make the person receiving the message feel like you care about them. It kind of feels like you're just objectifying them and you just want a certain thing and you don't really care about the person. And that's where I keep telling people to cultivate and build relationships. Even me as a paid sex worker, I have to build relationships with people to get to places they want to go. So I never get with someone sight unseen and take my clothes off. I go through the process so that I feel comfortable with them, even in that context. So if I have a man contact me wanting prostate massage, which is a very intimate act, first I need to talk with them, I need to get to know them. I don't feel comfortable going into their body until I feel like there's a level of trust and all of, so I guess I'm going kind of high level here, but we're all wanting some sort of connection. Okay, I'm just babbling now.
Yeah, when I get messages like this, I mean, that's one of the reasons I started in sex work on my own. Was I figured if I'm going to get messages like this, let's make some money off of it. I mean, once I get a contact like that, the relationship aspect is gone. You're never going to get that back. I mean, you've just turned me off to the point that it's not going to happen. So, but if this is what you want and that's the only thing you're interested in, my rates are reasonable.
So we talk about how not to approach these women or people you're interested in. Can somebody tell me a way that they've approached someone that has worked? Who's in a successful, thriving, who's getting their needs met here? I know David is, and David has a life that a lot of my people who contact me wish they had. He has multiple loving relationships. He has all these interesting dynamics, and you can see we have a podcast interview that came out recently with Angela Skirtu, who's a licensed sex therapist. It's on our Facebook page, the Sex Positive Facebook page. We'll have to share it.
We'll add it.
Anyway, so we talked about different relationship dynamics and so forth. So how, if you've been on a dating site, whether it's not Meetup, but on Tinder or OkCupid or Match.com, how have you approached a woman and gotten to the part of a date or a relationship? Can anyone give me that idea, or has that never happened? Hello. Yes.
This might sound bad, but I just copy and paste.
Okay, so your technique is to copy and paste the same kind of...
I know like 6 different things.
Okay, so do you read the woman's profile?
No.
Okay, so what happens when you do that technique? It works?
It works.
It works.
It doesn't work for every woman, obviously.
Obviously, yeah, but if you're
But
putting it out
does
there
work.
to 10 women, one responds?
I'd probably say 2 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then from then I will read their profile
If they respond?
if they respond.
Okay, and that means that you're not putting in a lot of time and energy at the beginning.
That's true, I'm not.
And then well, that's okay. And then they respond, and then you have a chance to then do a little homework.
I used to read profiles and stuff, and then read a person, and then write a personal message.
And give them a personal message, and then you wasted your time?
Exactly.
Okay.
Those are usually the ones that contact me and then are like, oh crap, I didn't know you're trans, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I'm certainly not an authority on this, but I met my wife on OkCupid, and I'm non-monogamous, and I've met several long-term partners on Tinder or OkCupid. And you know, I fully understand that there is to some degree a numbers game, right? Because you know, what was it? The market's been saturated by dick. That was said, right? And so it's kind of difficult, right? There's a lot of competition out there. And so it can make it feel like you are just wasting your time. But I found that, you know, just going through a person's profile and identifying just 1 or 2 key points that resonate with you and reacting to them in like, you know, 2 to 3 sentences, and then following up with a question that you're interested in or that you think can facilitate conversation is pretty effective. And you know, I've gotten out of the dating game recently, but I was fairly.
Because you're saturated with.
I'm not going to say why I got out of the dating game, but I will say that this technique was not very time intensive, but was also reasonably successful.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat what you said, and I like what you said because I agree with you. And what it is that when you're looking through all these profiles, you can glance through, skim through the profile, and just pick out a couple of things that you might have in common with, a favorite author or place they like to go, museum, whatever. And then you write them a brief 2 or 3 sentence thing, not a long history, an essay, not a 1 question, what's up, but to say 2 or 3 sentences about something and end with a question. And then the success rate of response is better.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think generally I don't have the numbers on it, but you know, so long as the question isn't just like, how was your weekend?
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, if someone's into, say, graphic novels, and I'll say, you know, have you read this graphic novel? I really liked it. I thought it was similar to this one, or, you know, things like that. Then people like talking about themselves and sharing.
And it's not just women, but people like being considered as human beings with multifacets, and so that's also good for anyone approaching anyone, is that people want to be more than just an object.
Now also with what I'm hearing though, you're taking the time to get to know the person, like to ask them questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
And it's a facilitated conversation, right? It's kind of like a job interview, right? You don't just want to go and give yes and no answers in a job interview, and you also want to seem engaged with the interviewer. And I hate to treat it like transactionally like that. But that's kind of how it is.
Right, but you're also not going to the end game either.
No.
See, and that's one of the big problems that you get with these messages is these people are going straight to the end game, and you know, women need that medium. You know, it takes us time to get there.
Having seen my wife's profile on OkCupid and the types of messages she gets, I would say that 70 to 80% of them within a message or two are just like, what is the shortest distance between me and fucking you?
Okay, so this man said that he's seen his female partner's profile, and it seems to be that 70-80% of the people contacting his partner just immediately want to find access to her body. And some women, most women, need more than that to get to that point. And is that surprising to anyone? Okay. You have
Not like I don't know what he said. A lot
Yes.
of women that I have talked to that have profile, they'll get dick pics on like the first message. It's just crazy.
Yes.
And I'm like, that can't work. That can't work.
It doesn't.
I guess it's worked at some point because they keep doing it.
No, I don't think it's ever worked.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, with what you said about seeing your wife's profile, that is exactly why I do not do online dating. I refuse. I've tried a couple times and no.
And as you see from social media, there's a lot of women who receive these unsolicited dick pics, and there's been many creative approaches, responses to that. So I know that Amy Amore, one of our local, she does clothing optional yoga and many other things, she sends an invoice right away. I think it's like offensive dick pic tax or something, I don't know, but she sends them an invoice, and then they don't contact her again, and she makes her point.
That's a really good suggestion.
It to me, when I receive one of those, it's a complete deal breaker. I don't care. That's it until that person, like it's a deal breaker for me. And to me, it's like being flashed on the street, but it's online harassment, in my opinion. And I'm seasoned. I've been around the block, and that to me is not good for me. I know some women don't mind it, but most women do not like it at all.
I look at it that if that's what you feel is your best foot forward, you have absolutely nothing to offer me.
So if men would realize that the way to a woman's interest is through their mind, and it's all mental, it's not physical. We've seen one dick, you've seen them all, pretty much. So yeah, if they would take the time to really get to know the woman and what she is interested in, and she will then respond backwards as well.
You get a much more positive response.
You get a much more positive response.
So let me run through some advice that someone in our community who's not here today, he's a man and he's in 3 relationships with different women, and he's very much getting his physical and emotional needs met. He gave me this little line of bullet points, and I want to see what you think. So it kind of might match up to what you just said. He said that women think differently than men. Do you think that's true?
Oh yeah.
Women are by and large, okay, I like this one. Women are by and large smarter and detect your vibe and energy that you put out around you immediately. They immediately can tell if you have good intentions or something fishy's going on. There's something called like a gut instinct, and we are on guard like that a lot. We're not as gullible and naive and ready to just follow everyone down whatever alley you're saying, come on over here. Women can detect if you are a caring person or just trying to manipulate them. Agree? Women don't really care about how flashy you are or how big of a dick you are. They care more about what is in your heart. I know that's so cheesy.
It is.
But women want you to be a caring human being and not just, they don't want you to be a sex machine. I don't know, like, that's my opinion. Women do care about hygiene, and you should too. Like, everyone has hygiene we should be concerned with, right? And I want to go back to the be authentic. And try not to approach women in an eager, greedy, desperate, immature, intense, wanting to get a woman alone immediately. That will send her running, and that will get her to leave our group when you come at her that way with those messages. Why did you stay? Like, why aren't you saying I'm done?
Because I can deal with it. I don't know. I feel I'm stronger than that. So I'm not going to let someone push me out of something I want to be in, and I won't let them make me feel uncomfortable.
Back to this one, don't fetishize people, objectify people for one key specific body part. Not everyone wants to be treated like a freak show, you know? And think about your energy and what you have to offer. And again, be yourself, be authentic. And who else wants to put in something? What else would you like to say as far as dating as a woman?
I would think that if men put enough energy into getting to know someone down the road, they'll get plenty of sex. They'll get plenty of openness. They'll get my body. They'll get my mind, my heart, my soul, or even if it's just temporary. But if they take that time to get to know who I am, they're going to get there. They're going to get to their objectivity. They just have to put more energy into it.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
I'm certainly no Casanova at all. I'm in a happy relationship. But I did have quite a period of time when I was online and doing the online dating. I didn't have as much trouble getting someone to agree to meet me. But I did have the normal trouble of I wasn't compatible with everybody that I met. And what I found useful for me is to reserve my own judgment that maybe I'm not into her. Just because she's attractive, and especially if she's really hot, but I want nothing to do with it. And I have enough self-esteem that I'm not going to invest time chasing somebody that's not interested in me, or that isn't returning the signal. Now, in the end, it just turned out she picked me. I thank the Lord and I picked her, but part of it was we met in a common area where we both had an interest in what we were doing. I hope you don't mind me mentioning you, but I met Debbie in a dance club where we both were going there because we were interested in the activity.
Okay, so you met in a safe space, a place where you both had something in common.
Yes.
So a dance group or one of our happy hours in a public setting is a good environment. Where are some other good places to meet people in a safe place, like-minded, like a book club or a volunteer organization?
There's a gazillion other
And of
meetup
course,
groups.
church and ethical society. I've met so many different people in the meetup group, like you mentioned. So it's a two-way street. Also, I'm repeating what you said. It's not just about you being a man and there's a hot woman there. You also have to think about what you're looking for. And not everyone's going to be a good match for you as well.
Right.
When I'm saying all of this, it sounds like we're saying don't maybe, or giving you this advice, but is it too vague? Is it striking you as, oh, that makes so much sense, I'm going to try this thing now? Or does it feel frustrating when we say this and you're thinking, well, I've tried this for 2 years and it's not working? Anyone?
I think that well, from my experience of just not a whole lot, just the past year since I got out of marriage, there's a lot of quick judgments that I've had men make.
Quick judgments about you?
Me, about who I am, and then they don't take the time to look deeper, to realize, well, you know what, I have a lot to offer, but being especially a bigger woman, and that's my experience, and I'm actually belong to a cuddle group or cuddle website, and I've had a few experiences, and a lot of the men, they seem to think that the cuddling is all they want is the sex.
Okay,
And
so we all agree that we're in a skin touch starved society. We could all use more touch. There's something called skinship. There's something about being touched. Physical touch is a very important thing. A lot of men are lacking in it, especially men not in relationships. It's hard to find that. So there are options for that, like getting therapeutic massage and a cuddle club. There's cuddle groups in town. And so be aware that when you want to go and be platonic and do this cuddling, there are some people who come with a different intention, like that's just like a foot in the door technique. If you look up psychology, social psychology, there's so many different things you can look out for to see who's in it for the right intentions. And it's just, you just want to find people who want the same thing or something pretty similar that overlaps and that you're not coming from totally different places.
I just want to share something that a friend of mine He's entering the world of online dating for the first time, and he is quite possibly the least suave human being that I have ever come across. But he's such a good person, and I was very nervous for him to be in the online dating world and how cool it can be, especially when I know that he's reaching out with good intentions. And he actually sent his dating profile to 3 of his female friends and said, hey, could you please give me some feedback on this? And each of us gave back different responses, don't put winky faces, that has connotations you don't realize when you're sending it to people, etc. And he took it all very generously, even sent us the page and was like, if your friends could pick 4 words to describe you, what would they choose? And we were like, he was like, well, I figured you should just choose it. We were like, okay, this is, and I was very worried, and he has been inundated with messages, which is unheard of for my male friends hearing about their experiences. And now his biggest worry is, how do I let these girls down gently?
Oh my gosh!
And
I hope they can hear you.
Yeah,
say
can
that.
you reiterate that?
Yeah. And I just wanted to share that because I think it was a really good experience for him to get that feedback from us and boost his confidence going into the experience. And also, I think it really helped in terms of having a profile that was very welcoming to the kind of person that he wanted to attract.
So, when you are going into online dating, make your profile and then share it with 3 people that you trust or respect their opinion of and get some feedback on that profile. They can give you different perspectives of what you're putting out there. She mentioned that if you put winky faces, that can be a different connotation for what you're trying to convey. Also, keep in mind the kind of pictures that you're posting, etc. So that has helped him so much with this having women feedback, friend feedback, that he now inundated with responses, and now he has the problem of trying to figure out who to pick and do and stuff. Yeah, so that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, me again. I'm going to stand behind you so that maybe my head will be on camera. Okay. We talked earlier about sending messages to women and copying and pasting and sending the same message and so on and so forth. And I have a letter that I send out to women that I'm interested in, and it's basically called the I want to have sex with you letter. It may even be called the I want to fuck you letter, but that's the subject line. And the first paragraph is boilerplate, it's copy and paste, everybody gets the same first paragraph. And it says in the letter, this first paragraph is copy and paste, this is what I send to everybody. And then the second paragraph is custom to the person that I'm sending it to. And it says, okay, pay attention to this part because it concerns you specifically. And I write a custom message explaining what my interest is in them, what type of relationship I'm seeking, et cetera, et cetera. It has about a 50% success rate. And the upshot is that on the failure rate, I don't lose friendships. People don't get horribly offended. It's hey, I'm not interested, but thank you. And the thing about it for me is, A, it's transparent. It's basically saying, here's what I'm interested in. And it gives the woman a chance up front to be yeah, that's not for me, or, okay, I'm interested, tell me more. But I think the important part of that letter is that it's specifically tailored to each individual. I'm not just sending out an email blast to every woman I'm trying to sleep with the exact same verbiage.
I've not heard that technique before. And so instead of a 0% rate, you have about 50-50?
Yeah.
About?
Yeah.
Anyone else have some feedback or suggestions or frustrations, questions about all of this? Yes?
I have 9 questions.
How many of these things have you heard before?
How many
of our, what we've talked about, how much of this is familiar to you already? You already know this.
It all sounds familiar, but I can't.
Pretty generic, it's pretty, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess I have to prioritize the questions.
Yes, pick one, and maybe it will lead to discussion, and then we can see if we get to the second one. We'll chip away at it.
All right, so I feel there's this kind of implicit bias against anybody who really is just interested in a physical relationship. And if that is genuinely what you're interested in, trying to seek something else feels dishonest and misleading and manipulative.
I'm glad you pointed this one out because this sounds like a doozy. This sounds like a really good one. So what if you're just looking for sex or intimacy, touching, sort of hookup,
And
friends with benefits?
That's not to say, like, I'm going to treat you as an object. I'll still treat you, but give you respect.
Uh-huh.
All right?
But to make it clear that you do like to have some physical commingling.
Yeah.
Yeah. The man behind you had, do you have a suggestion?
Well,
Feedback.
I want him to finish it out. He's going to someone just for like friends with benefits. And he didn't even finish his.
So, I mean, yeah, like, there's a lot of times when that's just what I want. That's not all the time. Sometimes I do want, like, actual, like a deeper, more full friendship, or like romantic, emotionally fulfilling, completely sexual relationship. But like other times, like there's a lot of different specific things that may be looking for in those circumstances.
Stacy, have you ever had a relationship that started out kind of friends with benefits and then developed into a relationship just as a sort of natural course?
Yes. Yeah, well, that is not my normal. I don't do just physical relationships on generally. I've only done it one time, and it worked out really well for me. But it was the openness and the honestness that I got right off the bat from it. The setting down and saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm capable of giving. What do you want? What are you capable of providing? What are you comfortable with? And it was that dialogue that opened it up for me.
But that feels like it conflicts with some of the stuff you said earlier.
He said that might conflict with what we said earlier, which is a fair point, right? What would you like to say?
I think I agree with Stacy. If I'm talking to somebody and we're just talking and, hey, I'm just really interested in a friend with benefit or even like a temporary friend with benefit. This is what I want. What do you want? What can we do together? It's just like in the BDSM community. We talk about what kind of fetishes we have or what kind of negotiations that we can do together. Build up a little bit of trust, a lot of trust, a lot of openness, and again, from there, you're going to get what you want. He's going to get what he wants. It doesn't always have to. The end goal doesn't always have to be a long-term relationship. It can be a short-term connection. But the honesty is key. The communication is key. There's a lot of men out there that they're quick. They're one-hitters. And they don't tell you that they're going to be a one-hitter. Or they don't tell you they're going to be they just want that closeness and that intimacy just because that's what they want. If they would be open and they'd be honest and they would tell us that's what they want, and then ask us what do we want, we can come to a common ground, and then everybody gets it. It's a win-win.
And I think timing too, with honesty, it's not something you want to just jump into right away. It's like how we talk about, hey,
it wouldn't be the first message.
It shouldn't be the first message, but
Right.
maybe like first or second date.
The second, third coffee or dinner, whatever.
Yeah, a meeting where you establish you actually like the person likes you, there's some connection, and then bringing it up as you got to know them a little bit. But then also realizing that person might not be interested in that sort of relationship too.
Yeah.
And it's not just because you expended some energy getting to know someone and they don't want the same thing you want, that's not a failure. It's not a waste of time.
It means you want different things, and then you move on and you do each other a favor by not wasting each other's time on and on and on by kind of stringing it along and trying to accommodate or be nice. The worst thing you can do is ghost people. Do we all agree on that? That's the most rude thing you can do is ghost someone. This all reminds me so much of a lot of advice that Dan Savage shares on his Savage Lovecast podcast. If you haven't listened to that, you should definitely listen. He comes from it from a gay male perspective, but he offers advice to all the people who call in. And he really wishes that straight people would take on the advice of gay men when they're dating, because they have such a better, they've been doing it better for 20 plus, 40 plus, a long, long time, because they come to each relationship asking, they open and honest, what are you into? And then they find out what they're into, and if this person has this, like, or do we match? And then if you don't, then you move along, and it's no hard feelings. Also, with gay men, they have a smaller dating pool, so when they break up and don't date anymore, they can still be friends, and they don't have to not cross paths anymore, like a lot of straight people have this mentality that once you break up with someone, you can't be friends anymore. I think that's changing, but there's so many good things to disclose in the first 2 or 3 dates, like your STI conversation status, your relationship goals, and of course what you're into. BDSM community is great because you get to negotiate ahead of time, and you can take those tools into vanilla dating, and it helps a lot.
Does that answer your question? You still look confused. The body language is saying that I still don't get what you're saying. Is that wrong?
I think the slight difference is if you're honest with that and wanting what it is, I just want to have sex with you. And why do you want to have sex with me? Which is a better approach than just I want to have sex in general.
I think women would really appreciate that a lot more if you're just open and honest and, hey, I'm attracted to you. I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, but I'd like to be friends. I'd like to be intimate with you, have sex. We're adults. We're mature.
I think that's vanilla-wise, it's tricky because you hear a lot of women say that, and guys are like, okay, look, I just want to hook up and smash, and they automatically say, well, you just want sex. Well, now I say won't smash. I won't smash. I say friends with benefits. Even if you say friends with benefits, smash sounds better. If you say friends with benefits, they still be like, you just want to fuck. And they don't give you a chance. And
So then they say no right away.
Yeah, they say no right away.
And so I think you have a good point, yeah.
I was going to say no regardless.
Keep going, yeah.
I just think it's, I don't know, it's tricky. If you're honest, it's cool. There's a deceiving side to it because you play the role like you're interested. And I agree that's wrong. I'm just saying it's really tricky, especially to say, like he said, on the first date, maybe you have to wait a few days in.
That's the trick.
You can't say it up front. Yeah, because as a woman, I feel like y'all can get dick anywhere, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Check this out.
It's not just that, but if you take the time to take me on day 1, day 2, day 3, it could be just a cup of coffee, okay? But you're actually showing me that you're interested in getting to know me, and you're not friends with benefits with me, and you leave me and go right next door to another friends with benefits, because that's what women are thinking.
So we're not just
That's right, because when you come up to me and say, hey, what do you think about friends with benefits? Why would I want to?
Right.
Take your time, take me out, get to know me 2 or 3 times, then have that discussion with me. I'm not going to be upset with you. I may still say, well, we might want to continue a friendship, and you can come and ask me advice, right, Mikey?
I think, though, that it's also important to say that I think age has something to do with it.
So age has something to do with meeting and having relationships and sexual and intimacy with other people?
What age range, if you're looking at the younger women, I don't think, then you do. I think it is tricky for men when they're dealing with certain age ranges as to whether they're going to even be honest.
And different cultural backgrounds and different, college versus all kinds of things.
I think there's a real difference too with context, because in one context it may be acceptable to say, I just want to fuck. If you're at a play party or if you're in a community where that sort of thing is acceptable. Now if you're your Bible study class, that's not going to go over very well.
Unless you're David. No, I'm kidding.
I know a lady, she met her husband at church, and they church picnic, first date, they went and had sex. But it depends on the context, because certainly if you're in a swinger group party, there are settings where it may be perfectly acceptable to say, I'm not interested in anything but your flesh.
Yeah.
And there are other contexts where it's not. I think the important thing is to be honest about what context you're in and what you want, and be clear with the other. So both parties can make an informed decision, and they can own their own decisions.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get in on this too. You already know that a lot of women want relationships, not just sex. So there's a compatibility issue also. I mean, you're looking at a smaller pool, so even if you're being honest, you may not be getting the right fish. So you can't blame them for that also. So there's that.
Let's have an experiment. Let's have an example. Let's say that Tuesday night we're having a sex-positive St. Louis happy hour. Tuesday night, 6 to 9 at the Monocle. No, I'm fine. There will be between 60 and 100 people there. We tend to get 60% men, 40% women to a lot of our events because men are very eager and excited to get out there and mingle. Women tend to kind of wait till the last minute, see what other options they have, and then they show up. And so I would suggest to you that these women who come to this event, some of them are monogamous, some of them are polyamorous, some of them are open to dating, some are not. You can't assume that every woman who's a member of Sex Positive St. Louis is ready to get down right away. You have to treat them as if they're a person you want to get to know. So when you come to the happy hour Tuesday night, if it's your first one, I have a fun idea. This one has a fun shoe theme, which is so cheesy, but I got new cowboy boots, and I'm so excited about them. So I get to debut my cowboy boots at this happy hour Tuesday night, so you can come up and compliment me on my cowboy boots, and I encourage you to wear fun shoes as well. You can wear cowboy boots or other fun boots or whatever, and then there's a conversation piece. So you can see people's footwear and see what they're wearing, and you strike a conversation with them, and they can say, I have hiked the Appalachian Trail in these shoes or something, and then you can say, oh, I hike too. Then you get to know each other. So you're not going to come there and necessarily hook up with someone that very night, but you're going to meet like-minded people and build relationships if you can manage to go up and talk to a couple of people. It can be really hard when you're new to the group and you tend to kind of hang back, and the introvert stuff sucks. And I'm an introvert, and that's why I made this group, because then it forces me to be in the middle of everything. I would be on the wall too. If I go to an event that I don't know people, I'm like that. So, yeah, so I feel you. Yes?
So this is a really hard question to answer, so I'm just kind of interested in the reaction to it.
Where's my pearls? I'm going to clutch them. No, don't.
Yeah, so, let's just say you're, sort of on the vanilla side of things. And you want to have one of these conversations, but you really don't know what is, what's happening on the other side. I mean, you really don't.
You mean when you meet a woman for the first time at a happy hour? You mean like that?
Right.
Okay.
So for example, going to Sex Positive St. Louis. Quick promo here. It's always a great event.
You've been to them, yeah?
Which event? I'm sorry?
Just our happy hours.
Just a happy hour. It's always a great event. People are there sort of like-minded. I think the harder thing is, what if they're not like-minded, and how do you sort of find out that?
I feel like he would have the answer, Mr. Phone Man, over there, because you talk to somebody and then you kind of get to know them one or two more times, get some contact info or something. You don't say immediately, are you a top or a bottom? Like you can sit there and get to know each other, and then you find out, and then you can even open up people to new experiences in a very safe way that's not pushy and manipulative. But what more, what, do you want to get to the punch quicker? Like what's your...
No, it's not so much that. It's just that, there are certain sort of, social expectations in those environments that, are difficult to sort of navigate around. And
maybe that's why people online feel like there's this barrier that comes down that they can get there really quickly, which still doesn't work when you do it online. So what you said is that you have to kind of work this social thing. And anytime anyone contacts me immediately with something like that, it's off-putting. Yep. It doesn't draw me in, it pushes me away. And it has pushed some women all the way off of our site.
Why have the expectation? just go in and you're going to meet people and you're going to talk with them and you're going to see whether you have anything in common or whether you have any chemistry, whether you have anything good to feed off of each other, and then let everything else develop. You go in there with expectations, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but, sort of on the vanilla world, the world we all sort of grew up with, we're not having even this conversation.
Very true. Very true.
We're not having this conversation.
If that's the issue, if you're not having that conversation, I think that is the issue. I think at our ages, and I don't care what age you are,
I'm probably a little older, so.
But from the time that you're a child until you die, we all know about sexuality. It's just at different levels. And you have to be able to discuss it, but again, at different levels. I'm not going to talk to my 3-year-old granddaughter about sexuality the same way that I talk to you as an example, So just like when you meet someone for the first time, you're not going to ask them, what are you into? You're going to take me out for coffee, and you're going to find out a little bit about me, and then you're going to decide after that 1 or 2 hours that we're together, I think I might want to take her out for another cup of coffee and see what else she's like.
But even at that third or fourth cup of coffee, it's a hard thing for I'll say for a guy in vanilla world to say, what are you into? I mean, in terms of what you're looking for in terms of a relationship.
I'll tell you, my partner.
I'll tell you.
My partner, I've been together 10 years, and he and I are in an open relationship, and he goes to work conferences, and he goes, and he's a musician, he has different, what do you call them, groups, communities, than just the sex positive community. He goes to different places where it's a lot of vanilla, a lot of people from rural areas, and when he gets with those people, and he's talking with them and having drinks with them, he lets them know he's in an open relationship, and it's the first time they might have heard of such a thing. They ask questions, he educates them, and then he lets them sit and think about that. He doesn't say, and now that you know that, let's go to bed. He plants the seed. Like, he lets people know about these things existing. Then they can go do some research. They come back, they ask him questions, and over time, within like weeks or months, then he ends up being with them, and not because that was his whole point, but because now they know this stuff. They know that he's a safe place. He's not going to just come at them right away, and then he's opened them up to this world of possibilities, and I don't know if it just works for him. That's how he talks about it. Like, if you were to say, I'm into this kind of thing, they can ask questions, and don't say, I want to spank you. I don't know, I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to, okay, go ahead.
Well, he brought up expectations. How is that different than the expectations I was expressing? By telling a woman that I have no expectations.
So, do you have any women friends that are platonic?
I really don't have any women friends.
And do you want platonic women friends?
Women at work.
Yeah. So would you like to have platonic women friends?
Well, I would like to ultimately date someone.
You have expectations. So you do want eventually to get sexual with a woman, which is totally fine and cool, but you have to just kind of, God, I hate saying you have to do this, but it's really helpful to...
I honestly don't know, because I have never dated.
Okay.
And I'm 60 years old.
Yes, so you would be inexperienced compared to all the poly man whores and people, right?
So obviously I'm not doing something right.
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad that you haven't gone to a dating coach or a pickup artist sort of thing, but you do need to learn how to be around women and be friends with women. You have to start somewhere. And a lot of people start off with friendships that developed into something more, unless you're going straight at a sexual thing, and you can do a paid thing, as opposed to cultivating relationships. So I guess if you don't have women friends and you want to learn how to make women friends, then when you have those women friends, then you get experience that way, and then maybe one of those will develop into something sexual, but it's not a guarantee. So I don't know, like, it's interesting that you have a very different place where you're coming from. And it is challenging with that in mind, but you have to start with friendships. You need to learn about how to be around women, feeling comfortable and being conscious of their needs and safety without coming at them in a way that's kind of intense or too much about wanting that end goal. Am I making any sense? Okay, go ahead.
So I feel like me and this guy are kind of cut from the same cloth. I grew up with a tremendous amount of sexual ridicule and shaming just because of the way society was, or I shouldn't say society, but like my culture. I was like raised in
a sex negative environment.
It's I won't say sex negative. It was just like very, very prescribed and like very controlled access kind of thing.
So no sex before marriage.
Basically, yeah.
So not a lack of information, but a certain amount of information given to you. That was.
So it was lack of information that was given to me and lack of experience, because I wasn't able to get experience. And like there's learning from books and stuff, but there's like lots of stuff you can only do from experience.
Yes.
And like I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
Like throughout the whole big like major learning period of my life, I didn't use any of that. So like, I feel like the majority of men that I have met have some complaints about lack of success in their dating lives or whatever, but they still have had experience. I didn't even go to high school. I was in a.
You were homeschooled or
I was
something?
homeschooled, so like I didn't even have contact with like hardly anybody except for like my siblings, my parents, and even as a homeschooler, I was especially isolated for other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of the advice that I read from professionals or hear from professionals is all targeted at people where there's this assumption that there's like this kind of like a underlying social understanding, which, I mean, to a certain extent, I have gained a lot of that, but it seems like about the same time that I started trying to move into a, like more romantic and sexual direction, trying to understand that stuff. It was the same time, like the entire culture really started to clamp down on sexuality, and I think I kind of mixed a little bit most of it, but like I don't think that I'm in as big of a minority as I originally thought. As big a minority, a small minority, I guess would make no sense. But like a lot of the stuff that you're saying is like you need at least 2 out of 3 prerequisites, and like only have 1 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? No, you don't.
You know, so most people in St. Louis grew up in St. Louis. Let's just say that. Most people are like from 0 to 10. They were children and they had crushes and they kind of knew about sex by watching some sex scene on TV. They had this early budding awareness of sexuality from 0 to 10 from media and their environment. Then from 10 to 13, most people have puberty, and then everything goes woo, you know, it gets really crazy, all the hormones and so forth. Then you're in middle school, and a lot of people feel like they get in a really vulnerable, bullying kind of environment. They have to figure out who they are, and then they're in high school, then they start dating for the first time, and that's where a lot of people have a lot of their first sexual experiences with other people, not to mention their own solo sex exploration. And then a lot of people go to college and have another phase of their life with sexual exploration. A lot of people meet their future partners in college or in workplaces later on. So that's the normal trajectory for St. Louis people in a bigger city. And so what you're saying is you did not have that.
I did not have that.
So now you're thinking, what the heck do I do now? How do I catch up?
I hate using the term catch up, but like, there is like this expectation that everybody else in society seems to have about what you know and about how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas people have that kind of underlying common experience, I have a mountain of shame and guilt that I'm trying to overcome. And like lots and lots of fear of, I guess, being just another guy contributing to the problem. And
That's so valid you say that.
That is by far the biggest barrier I have to communicating with really anybody, like, especially women that I'm attracted to.
How do you engage with people and show attraction to people when everyone's pointing out fingers and outing people and the Me Too movement and all these things that can be very discouraging, disheartening, and dividing of people?
Yeah, so like my instinct has always been to just kind of like back off and just let everybody else do what they're going to do and like try to find my own life solo. That hasn't worked at all. But now like I'm pushing forward to try to, you know, have more meaningful and deeper connections. And I believe that like a sex-focused relationship can still be really meaningful, and a lot of stuff can come out of that. Your original intention was just like more sexual. Like that's, I don't have any problem with that kind of inverse relationship developing. And let me know if I'm rambling or if I'm taking too much time.
Well, does anyone have any feedback? Does this sound new to you? Because I don't think about growing up in a homeschool, very limited environment. It doesn't occur to me, so I'm thinking, go out and join some groups, go out and do this. You know, I don't have that perspective, so it's really good for you to put that out there. And same with you?
I can talk about the guilt and shame thing. You have to address that first. And you have to separate the guilt from the shame because they're not the same. They're totally different. So, for me, I had to figure out why I felt guilt and shame. They just are not the same.
Okay,
And
so
you
there's
can't-
building.
You can't move forward unless you do that.
So there's a starting point, and the starting point is not to go on OkCupid. The starting point, just like when you've been in a relationship and it ends, instead of having rebound relationships and getting into other things quickly before you've had a chance to really recover, heal, and find out what you really are wanting, it's a really good idea if you are single and a free agent, to take some time, whether it be weeks or even a few months, to think about, reassess. What am I looking for? What do I want moving forward? And building off of those things, like working on the inner self and really getting your shit together or yourself together before you start adding more to it.
Yeah, what you're saying, I didn't have the guilt or shame aspect, but I was very awkward growing up as a child and as a teenager. Really didn't even start dating until my early 20s. I'm now in my late 30s, and it's been an awkward development, but it has been a progressively good development and going in the right direction. So there's been a lot of like learning mistakes that I've made, awkwardness, stumbling as I'm becoming more aware of myself, more comfortable with myself too. So that's like completely normal as you're figuring yourself out. Also too, like I'm a big fan of Dan Savage. And he says you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be a good working order to be in a relationship. So
Dan Savage, Dr. Love Nerd.
Dr. Love Nerd is paging Dr. Love Nerd, or
Dr. Nerd Love.
Yes, he's a different one who gives a lot of advice to men dating wise, and Dan Savage is a different one who gives a lot of advice. So they're two good resources in my opinion.
yeah, Dan Savage is great. But the idea, you don't have to be perfect to be in a relationship. You have to be in good working order. So if you feel that these issues of shame are interfering with your ability to have a good relationship or the relationship you want, maybe taking a break from trying to date and just focusing on that is going to lead to more success. It's going to take longer. It's going to probably not be the funnest route, but it's going to be helpful.
Did you stop thinking?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an out-of-date point now, but I'll make it anyway. You know, it was this question about the uncertainty about how to manage yourself with women or with men or with, you know, whoever you're interested in a culture where on the one hand there's perhaps a more conservative element of guilt and shame that impacts us all, and I'm from a very, very small town in which I was certainly not immune to that, and so I understand it. But, you know, and then on the other hand, it does seem like there's been a change in the culture around the Me Too movement, that you are now under just like this close scrutiny in all of your behavior as a man. Like, that's, I think, the perception of a lot of men. And I spend too much time on the internet, so I hear about this perception among men. So the perception of that men, that there's been like this foundational change and that they're under the microscope now is, I think, very present. But first, I mean, I haven't experienced that in the slightest, but I think it's also easy to overstate the hostility towards men, I think, in the culture. So women and men are by and large on the same page. They want people that are going to be honest with them, that are going to communicate with them openly and honestly and clearly and frequently, right? So that's what they want. That's what you want, that's what they want. And it does feel like women are on a different page than men because we're told that women are on a different page.
And I just said that in my notes, that women think differently. You're saying we all kind of want the same thing, which I love.
I think that there are definitely different processes by which we understand the world, and some of that's cultural, maybe some of that's intrinsic. I'm not an expert on that. But I do think that we all fundamentally want the same thing, which is partners that make us feel good emotionally, spiritually, physically. And so long as you come at this directly and openly, communicate with them, communicate what you want in a respectful way, no one's going to, unless you're doing it in the workplace, right, which there are different norms and barriers there, but if you're doing it in a dating context, you're doing it in a interpersonal context, and you're doing it in a respectful way that allows the person to also communicate back to you what they're looking for, you're not going to get a Me Too reaction. People aren't going to be hostile towards that, so long as you are respectful and friendly. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I've been dating for a while. I've been non-monogamous for a while. I've dated monogamously. I've dated non-monogamously. I've dated in small towns. I've dated in cities. And just so long as you kind of treat the other person as if they have their own goals and their own needs, and you have your own goals and your own needs, you're trying to optimize between those two things. It's not always going to work out, right? Because people have their own needs and that may diverge from you. Yeah, but no one is going to react hostile to that. And if they do, that's on them. You've come at them honestly, you've come at them openly, and it's their choice to react hostile to that. But in my 33 years on this earth, much of which has been spent dating, I have never had a single negative reaction with that philosophy.
I really, really like how you mentioned all the things we have in common than what makes us different. And I want to let that sink in. That's so good. Thanks.
That was very, very important. If both men and women would just stop playing the games and stop trying to second guess your interactions and just be open and be honest, be vulnerable. That's a key too, to be vulnerable and realize that you're going to get rejected sometimes, and sometimes you're not going to get rejected, but just no games, no mind games. we're all human beings.
I just had two brief anecdotes from men in my life to address two of the points that have been brought up. First one was from some time ago when somebody asked, how do you bring up what are you interested in, what are you into? Actually, my partner was a learning lesson in that when we first started dating. I think at some middle, he looked at me and was like, so I would like to discuss I would like to discuss intimacy with you, and I would like to discuss your interests, and I was wondering if you are up for that at this moment, or if you'd like, maybe to talk about it at a different point, or you're just not there yet. I was like, oh, maybe not now, because this is really, he was like, that's cool, what are you doing tomorrow evening? Like, do you have any fun plans? And like, immediately just went on to a different topic. And it was the best way I've ever seen him brought up, because it gave me a space to think about it, and then immediately told me that if I didn't want to talk about those things right now, I wasn't going to be rejected for it. Just immediately was like, okay, he clearly had something planned for afterward. Like, if she says yes, we will talk about this, and if she says no, I'm going to ask this question, and we are going to just go through it. And by the end of the meal, I was like, okay, I've had some time to think about this, and I think that I would like to talk about that.
Again, planting seeds and allowing people to do things on their own pace and at their own terms. So he wanted information from you, but he didn't tell you right now. He let you sit and process. Processing is my friend.
Yes.
I'll learn about a new fetish, and I have the immediate, like, ooh, I don't like that. I do. And then I sit and think about it, I research it, I look it up, and then I start to get used to the idea, and then I'm open to talk about it. And then I find out, oh my God, I have this in common with this. This part makes sense to me. It's, so that's a good point. And then what?
Found it to be exactly half the cheese quesadilla to come to that conclusion. But now I know that about myself. And then the second thing was that same friend, adorable friend with his dating profile, he also didn't grow up in such a secluded environment, but he also just didn't have the same dating experience. So he was at 30 years old going through dating, and I think that he had the interpretation that everybody around him expected him to have a certain level of experience. Like, by 30 you will have unlocked these goals and achieved these things, and now you know this. And we're all big nerds, we play a lot of board games, and we had the conversation with him that dating is a lot like a board game, and that nobody expects you to go into it and just know how to do it like immediately. And that getting some kind of experience, the first time you play, you're not going to win. And not winning doesn't mean that you didn't have a good time. So getting a girlfriend or having sex doesn't mean that the experience wasn't bad,
it wasn't a failure.
Yeah, and he just kept building up this moment and just was having trouble with dates. And one day, actually, everything went right. Like, think of everything that could go right in a scientist's world. Everything went beautifully right, and he felt so good. And he marched up to a girl that he had a crush on for the longest time. And was like, "Hey, can I take you out for coffee?" And she said yes. And I got the phone call. I was jumping in my lap, like, yes, finally, yes! And it was just getting over this hump of fear of all these expectations that have been built up over time, and just, I don't know, for him, just getting one experience under his belt, just from, like, I just want to ask you to do a thing. I asked her to do a thing. She said yes, rock on, and it was such a good experience for him.
So when she says don't play games, that's not what you mean. You mean that you can learn from different parts of life, different strategies and approaches to things that you have a challenge with.
Dating and relationships are a learned skill, just like anything. Being a good person in particular is a learned skill.
You have to gain experience. You can't just have an arranged marriage. It doesn't work a lot of time. I don't know. I mean,
Did you still want to go?
I just wanted to mention something about expectations too, because I totally understand like not having expectations, but then having expectations.
Okay, yeah.
It's very difficult. It's like a cognitive dissonance where I don't have expectations, and then I have expectations. So when I do have expectations, first of all, I just have to tell myself to relax, and also expectations are kind of in the subtext. If you're meeting a woman and you're interested in going on a date, they're going to assume that you're not going to do anything to them. So you don't need to say that. It's just kind of understood. I'm going on a date with a woman that I matched with on Tinder or Bumble. The second date, third date, there might be sex, there might not be sex. But it's kind of assumed that something might happen, and I just go to experience it. And when I get those ideas of what to expect or what might happen, I just try to relax. It's very difficult.
Oh, yeah. It has to do with where you're coming from. I used to date a man years ago, and we used to swing together. And we would have party with 7 couples, and driving home he would bitch that he only got to sleep with 5 of the women. And I was so angry, and I broke up with him, not because of that, but so you know, like you have to learn over and over again that he's constantly saying, you're going to wear that, and all this stuff that was all, oh, I wish your boobs were bigger. All those things, not good person. Break up with him. Now I'm with a partner who, when he dates a woman, if she doesn't put out, if she doesn't take her top off, he doesn't get all disappointed. He enjoyed the energy, the conversation. He can't have that energy by himself. He has to have it with other people, and he gets value out of it, even if he didn't get all this skin contact.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say something about expectations, because I mean, I did raise earlier that there are these expectations out there, even if there are, they're not, and everything. Maybe one way to think about those expectations is as something to kind of know that are there, but maybe to test. In other words, not take those expectations as any kind of a truth, right? But just to kind of take it as sort of a starting point, and kind of test whether that expectation really is true in this context.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good advice, that you read body language, you see where things are going, you, go ahead, David.
Yeah, this is definitely your ballpark.
So real quick about expectations. I think saying that you have no expectations is always kind of a lie, whether you're aware of it consciously or not. I mean, if you change the sheets and clean your bedroom before a first date, you have expectations. It's not necessarily that you're expecting that this person's going to come home with you that night, but you want to be prepared in case it does. There are times when I will deliberately not clean my bedroom before a first date because I want to take it slow, and I know that if my place is a mess, I'm not going to bring them home whether they want it or not. I want to address the point that you made, this person knitting. I know your name, but I'm not going to say it because we're on the air. But you talked about your friend who had, or this guy who had a really smooth out when you didn't know how to react to his, come on, or his opening gambit, as we say in the pickup artist community. And that's something that I've been trying to tell people for years, is I think we as men, and I'm going to pick on, heterosexual men because I am one, we as men fantasize that our pickup lines, our opening gambits, our opening salvos are going to work, and in our brain we're already, in the hot tub with the bubble bath and the champagne. We don't fantasize about getting rejected. Even though we know it's a real possibility, and so even though we know it's a real possibility, we're not prepared. And so we put on our best face and we get rejected, not necessarily in a mean way or a harsh way, but just, cool, I'm not interested in that. We don't know what to do or what to say. And now we're embarrassed, we're disappointed, we're stressed, the cortisol levels rise, and we say and do things that we wouldn't do if we were more prepared. And so I tell guys all the time, fantasize about the acceptance, fantasize about the rejection, and how you're going to handle it. How you're going to handle it smoothly so that you don't create an awkward situation for yourself and the person you're coming on to, and that makes everybody feel better. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, they will realize that they are attracted to you. You just caught them off guard. But if you have a really negative response to a rejection, that's probably going to ruin it forever, because now this person is weary of you.
Well, not just that, not just fear, but what about if we really would like to be intimate with this guy, but just not enough?
Right.
And so now he's thinking the way you're thinking, so now we're thinking, oh my God, we're probably never going to go out again, when we want to. So how do we tell someone? Usually I'll say, if someone I don't know at all or only went out once, I'll say, oh, I'm too cute, or I'll say, well, it's a little bit early, I'm not ready for that. But then sometimes I don't hear from them. Or they'll say, this is our second date. You either put out or we're not going out again. I'm like, I guess this is our last date. What do you say to something like that? Oh, it's hard.
I am bisexual, and the other day I went on a date with a woman, and she'd never been with women before, and she wanted to be with a woman. So we went on a date, and she told me she wanted to have intimacy with a woman, and so I expected that we would become intimate that evening, but we talked, and she told me her life story, and we got intimate on a very talking level, and it was really great, but she just got cold feet that night, and she's like, I don't think I'm ready yet. I was okay with that, and I said, that's totally fine. This is brand new to you. I enjoyed what we did already. That's fine. So then the next day she texts me, can I have a do-over? Can I do it? Please, oh, please, please. You know, and so I let her go and have her breathing room and think about it and process. And then that next weekend she came over and we had amazing sex. It was so good. Oh my gosh. And we all lived happily ever after.
Yeah, I would say from your perspective, just be honest and say a version of what you said right here. You know, let the person know why this might be a bad time for you, or why you may need more time, or can I call you next week? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think for us guys or whomever, whatever your gender is as the person, you know, pursuing someone or making the opening salvo, be prepared for that and have a smooth way of being like, that's cool, I appreciate your honesty. As Reed Mahalko might say, you could say, thank you for taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Or you could say, hey, that's cool, can I call you next week? Or can I give you my phone number and you call me if you want? You know, have a way to leave that line of communication open, but we don't have to decide right here, right now, if we're down to fuck.
And I just want to throw out that guy who threw out that gambit, he and I have been together 10 years now. his gambit paid off. That was not the only gambit that he played during our dating period, but it worked. It was very effective. The fact that I didn't, you know, I had that. I knew I had that space, and I knew that he would be accepting, regardless of when I felt comfortable. That was huge. That made a big difference.
Nice. Let's I'm an old lady and I have menopause. I'm getting really hot, so I'd like to sit down soon. So if we could maybe cover a couple more things, and then we can hang out, discuss a little bit, if that's okay with you. You drove me, so thank you. Yeah. Let's hear. Do you want to say one more from your 9 list of questions? Is there something that is a good?
So how do you deal with feelings of like overwhelming desperation?
Okay, and
just solitude.
Okay, so you're talking about loneliness or a lack of skin contact. So when I went on a date with this woman, I had already had sex 4 times this week, so I was good. I didn't need to worry about it. It was fine. But if I hadn't had sex in 3 months, I'd feel differently about that. I know what you're saying, and I feel like we're in different places, but I can see what you're saying. I feel like when you get your needs met, then you become more relaxed, and then you become more go with the flow. So you're saying, how do you get to that point? Yes. So anyone have suggestions? I know therapy is a good thing, and if you don't have anyone built in, if you aren't a member of a local cuddle club, there are some free meetups and things like that. You can go to massage therapy, you can look into other services, but how do you...
Don't isolate yourself. I mean, I don't know what your social life is, you know. I mean, your social life should include yourself, should include friends, family if you have them around, you know. So I don't know what maybe you need to think about your social life. How can you?
That's a can of worms.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Do you have perspective about how you?
First, if you can afford it or have the means for it, a sex-positive counselor is to discuss it. I think we sometimes look to our friends and family for support, and they're not professionally qualified sometimes to be able to provide that sort of help. Or maybe you feel like you can't talk to them because this is the subject of sex. It's really tough. One, being into a community where you have something you enjoy, you have like-mindedness, going in there and saying, hey, I might meet some people, but not going in there for this explicit purpose to meet people, which is a very kind of catch-22 sort of thing too. And then just being comfortable with yourself, I think too. It's hard.
I just wanted to pick up on what you said about like it's hard to find an activity where you're not there to explicitly meet someone, but there's that hanging in the background because it's with people. So I am also an introvert most of the time, but I'm a very good student. So like if I come to something with the perspective of I'm here to learn first, and anything that comes after that is just like a bonus. There are activities like out there that you can look at from a different perspective, but you have to force that perspective on yourself. Like, you know, whether it's doing something, some kind of activity, and if you address it from a perspective, I'm here as a learner, like whatever hat you have to put on, and then, you know, let the rest of those interactions just look at it as something extra, and a lot of really good of which you're not there to get out of it can come along with it. You know, it's just a matter of what perspective you're taking at that point in time.
And
I like that.
If I give an example too, like I recently joined a class for dancing, and I tried to go in there with, because my mom was like, oh, you're going to a dancing class, you'll meet so many women. And I was like, if I meet women, I meet women. And there was one woman, and I found myself talking to her like an awkward teenager. And I realized, like, why am I talking to her in such an awkward way? Oh yeah, because she's cute. And she's kind of talking to me the same kind of back and forth. So I just said, hey, I have a playlist of the music we're listening to. Would you like me to text it to you? And she said, sure. So we started talking a little bit more, and I don't even know where it's going to go, but I'm kind of going from a very slow place.
So now you don't have to wait to see her at the dance class the next time. You have connection with this texting.
This was on the third lesson, too, so this is like 3 weeks in.
Got it. Okay.
So I didn't immediately ask her when I saw her. I was like, I know she'll be here next week. And maybe the next week after that, I'll maybe talk to her a little bit more. Like, just...
This is the perfect way to slowly cultivate, develop a relationship that takes it slow. So we keep reiterating that Sex Positive St. Louis is not a dating community, it's not a hookup community, but if you go to the happy hour Tuesday night, you're going to meet like-minded people and you're going to see them there. You might have, your house is for sale, that person's a real estate agent, you make connections, you network, that person might know somebody, you know, so you just kind of develop it, and then you come back, and you come back to the second or third event. And we do have some people who have been in relationship for years and have amazing opportunities and get invited to neat things that first thing ever did was an ice cream social we had before.
I just say that meeting other people out in like the wild is a little bit difficult for me, because I'm always worried about, like, am I going to bother them? I don't want to seem harassing when I talk, so I just end up not talking. Yeah, it's very difficult. The idea is, like, if you, like, for you, example, you're talking about when you meet someone in line, you're having a conversation, it's all right to be like, hey, this is a really good conversation, would you like to, can I get your number to talk to? The other thing is I find it a lot more comfortable to use OkCupid or Bumble, where both parties are on their feet for dating. So they're all on the same kind of ground. Tinder's another issue, because Tinder, people tend to fuck around on that.
So Tinder tends to be more of a gamey kind of place?
Tinder's just a weird place.
It's a weird place?
Yeah. I think
it doesn't work for me at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's alright. It's just, even like Bumble and OkCupid tend to be their own messes too, but Tinder seems to be less, I don't know. Like, I've heard people say if you go on Tinder to get into relationships, you're probably using Tinder for the wrong reason. So yeah, it's sticking to dating apps or websites to kind of help.
Great.
I stumbled into this to do some homework. So
okay, hi!
I'm not gonna lie. So I'm a gay man, so some of this sounds, men are assholes in both areas, so let me just start with that. I think what you said was really important, because I've struggled with that too. But if people are out, especially at the same event that you're going to, it means they're open to engaging in what the event is supposed to do, which is, in this case, conversational. And if it's a party of some sort, then there's liquor, then they're open to drink. I mean, so some of it is, as an introvert myself, remarkably, is getting over that I'm interfering. If they didn't want to be there, they wouldn't be there. So it's accepting that it's a challenge to talk to people. I hate it. I don't go out generally to bars anymore because I can be ignored and drunk at home.
and it's a lot cheaper. So I think that's important. But the other thing I will say, I was a virgin until I was 29. I was gay my whole life. I'm a small town. Religion has issues within that too. And one thing somebody said, and I'll say it explicitly, therapy helped. Just talk therapy, working with somebody, dealing with, and it wasn't lifelong, it wasn't long term, but at some point it was just like, okay, I can process with somebody whose job it is to help me process. So as touching as what you're saying is to me, because it sounds remarkably familiar in a lot of ways, I would say at some point you try, but there's a lot of things you can do along the way to do that anyways.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes.
Sort of embedded within this idea of I'm interfering is that I'm being a creep, right?
That's a whole other topic. The whole thing about incels and creepy and harassing and stalking and all this stuff. Yeah.
And so you know, my thought about that is don't be a creep. You know, you sort of know what being a creep is, and just don't be that person genuinely. You probably aren't going to come across that way.
Yeah, I'm sure I have a blog post about what makes someone creepy. I know Charlie Glickman has a post about being creepy, and it has to do with violating or pushing boundaries too quickly and getting in people's space too quickly and being kind of manipulative. So that's the nutshell of it.
Didn't even bring up all that.
Oh, yeah, that's a can of worms. Anyone else say something, and then I'm going to sit down.